Our story begins with yet another job-stealing idiot. Basically, Peter Parker narrates how he's torn between being Spider-Man and his actual life. His boss, Mr. Aziz, complains that he's always late, but he makes an excuse which gets ignored. Mr. Aziz has an urgent delivery. Peter has to deliver it within 8 minutes or he's fired. He zips through traffic with relative ease, but the speed isn't enough and time's running out. Desperate times call for desperate measures, so he whips out Spider-Man, swinging through the city with speed and grace. But then he spots two knuckleheads about to turn into kitty pancakes. Spidey leaves the pizzas, swoops down, and rescues their sorry keisters. He gets back to web slinging and takes the pizzas with him before that dude can take a bite out of it. Ta-da! Peter Parker arrives with the pizzas. Wait, hold on a second, he needs to fix his broom closet. Now it's pizza time. Too bad the lady spots 3 minutes that he's late. Poor Pete can't catch a break, and Mr. Aziz fires him.
You're fired. Go.
He's also fired by J.J. Jameson, the head of the Daily Bugle News Center. Now he's fired because Jameson thinks his artistic photos have no place in his newspaper. But Jameson has turned the whole city against him, so Peter makes up the excuse that he won't pose for him anymore. Jameson's in dire need of the headline news, so Peter's forced to bust out a Spidey photo. Jameson thinks it's terrible, but he's desperate and makes up fake defamatory news for it. Peter haggles $300 for the photo, and Jameson thinks that's outrageous. Sold. Pretty nice cash for Peter, but sadly it doesn't cover his advance for last week.
Chin up, okay?
Up next in Peter's crummy day is rushing to school, being bonked left and right. Then yet another disappointing lecture from Dr. Connors. Since it never happened, he's the lizard, by the way. His grades, jobs, and life all going down the sinker. Peter comes home and there's a surprise party for him. Our man forgot it's his birthday today. Poor guy. He got Aunt May, Mary Jane Watson, and Harry Osborn all coming to greet him. Harry's next project involves a scientist highly regarded and supposed to be researched by Peter. Of course, Harry's still appalled from his father's supposed end from Spider-Man, so Harry doesn't like the idea Pete is taking pictures of him. Later, Peter spots a letter to Aunt May that she might get evicted, and he's concerned and wakes up Aunt May, but she's still torn about the end of Uncle Ben. Later, Pete bumps into Mary Jane, and they get a bit flirty, to the point Mary Jane is essentially throwing herself at him, but he shuns his own feelings for her own safety. MJ suddenly says she's got a boyfriend, then Peter shrugs that off to see her play the following day.
I'll be there.
Finally, after a long day, it's time to rent. No, not rent a girlfriend. It's for virgins. I mean, Mr. Ditkovich wants Peter to pay rent. Pete doesn't have the money, other than the $20 that this guy yanks off from his hand. Then his daughter, Ursula, says hi to him. A fiery hi at that. Now the day's finally over and Peter can finally rest. The next day, time to get ready for another horrible day. Already have Ditkovich asking for rent. The day might not be so crummy, thanks to Harry allowing a visit to write a paper on Oscorp's greatest scientist, Otto Octavius. Otto recognizes Peter as Dr. Connors' student, and Peter's asking him about his latest project, a machine that can be like a perpetual sun. Otto says it can constantly give out renewable energy. Peter's concerned about the power source being stabilized, but Otto's wife, Rosie, says that Otto has done his homework. Rosie wants to know about Peter's personal life, so he sheds a little bit of light into his complicated relationships. So Otto drops some advice. If you want a woman to fall in love with you, feed her poetry.
Poetry.
So, right off the bat, Peter reads a lot of poetry while doing his laundry. Too bad we're mixing colors with whites. Some time passes and Peter's back at home to gussy himself up for MJ's play. While leaving, Mr. Ditkovich is still hungry for rent, but Peter scurries away. The play's about to begin. People are already flocking to the theater, so Pete buys MJ some flowers. MJ's friend says she might be jittery tonight, but that's just excitement from Peter. Speaking of which, he's on the way on his dumpy scooter, but some crooks in a crime chase run his scoot over. Good thing he works out, rests, and eats his green vegetables.
That's what my mom is always saying.
The crooks are letting shells fly, and they cause a cop car to fly towards a crowd. We got Spider-Man making it just in time to save him. The crooks shoot at him, but he subdues him with a web and sticks him to a pole instead. He gets to the theater, but the usher won't let him in since he's late. Yet another disappointment for Peter Parker. So he waits outside, listening to some violin tunes about Spider-Man. Peter sees the play's over and MJ's exiting, but he also sees her sucking face with another dude. Peter's crushed by this, but duty calls, so he changes into Spidey and follows some cops. And suddenly, his web runs out. Oh, he's gonna feel that one in the morning. So he takes the elevator. then has an awkward conversation with some stranger about the suit's itchy crotch. Yet another disappointing day for Peter. Next day, he drops a message to MJ, saying how sorry he is for missing the play, kind of blaming it on the theater usher. MJ hears all of this, up until his call is cut. Pretending MJ's still hearing him, he admits that he's Spider-Man, and they can't be together because of the dangers he'd put her in. Sob confessions aside, it's time for Otto's demonstration. We have Harry, Peter, Rosie, some scientists, businessmen and women, and a lot of press gathering around to see Otto's latest doohickey, a fusion reactor that can harness safe renewable energy that can level the playing field. Assisting him in this demonstration are these 4 steel actuators that are strong even against heat and magnetism. These actuators, or tentacles, latch and sink their needles into Otto. They work perfectly. These tentacles are intelligent and are controlled by Otto's brain. One journalist is concerned that they might take over his brain, but he's got an inhibitor chip that protects his brain from their control. So now for the main event, the reactor that will revolutionize power everywhere. It's powered by tritium, sponsored by Oscorp, and Otto announces to fasten their metaphoric seatbelts.
Fasten your seatbelts.
He fires up that reactor and it's a success. Otto has the power of the sun in the palm of his hand, which is too much power because it begins to magnetize every metal object in that room. The crowd goes into a panic, and Pete now senses some danger, so he pulls a disappearing act. There's a big spike of solar flames and the crowd really loses it now. Otto's saying it's going to soon stabilize, but Harry wants to shut this down. A metal apparatus is about to squish him, but Spidey appears out of nowhere with the save. Harry's still angry, but Spider-Man has to try to shut this machine down. Otto flings him away and the reaction causes glass to fly towards it and unfortunately into Rosie. Another solar flare comes to overload Otto's inhibitor chip. While Otto is getting a massive shocker, Spider-Man takes this chance to pull the plug. Otto faints from electrocution, but the nova grows, then implodes into nothing. Great presentation, Otto. Of course, the presentation is left in shambles with the cops and paramedics here and there.
He humiliated me by touching me.
Now at the hospital, Otto's unconscious body seems to have really fused with the arms thanks to the heat reaction from the flares he sustained, so the doctors want to remove him by cutting off the arms first. As one of the surgeons was about to slice the arms off, they suddenly come alive and go haywire, game-ending people in the room in a chaotic manner. Once everyone's knocking on heaven's door, Otto's bandages are removed and the classic Darth Vader "no" comes out. He busts out the hospital where he already flings some cars here and there, and soon after, he makes his way to the docks' abandoned observatory. The next day, Jameson catches the reports, and he calls his assistant, Hoffman, to ask what to call him. Dr. Strange was one of them, but they stuck with Dr. Octopus, or Doc Ock. Pete comes in for work since Jameson needs Doc Ock photos, but he doesn't have any, so he's fired. Then Jameson remembers a party for a big American hero, so he's unfired. Peter's asking for an advance, and the comedy speaks for itself. Now Peter's tasked to meet him at the planetarium the following day. In this abandoned place, Doc Ock is lamenting his wife's passing, so he's contemplating the Sue of Sides. Too bad the schizo gets to him and he realizes the inhibitor chip is gone, so he talks to his arms about what went wrong. He decides to rebuild the fusion reactor, but he's kinda low on the dough. Let's turn to stealing it because taxation, is the real crime, right? At the bank, Peter and Aunt May fail to apply for a loan despite piling all of their assets together. What does a guy have to do to get some money around here? Of course, go mad with hyper-intelligent mechanical arms and steal it from the bank, genius. Peter runs away once more.
Oh, that boy of yours is a real hero.
Doc Ock flings off the local authorities, so he bags some gold coins for himself. Sensing Spidey's there, he throws him a few nickels for the road, but Spidey pays his dues back. Doc throws some more coins until he lands a blow. Just as Spidey was about to be squished like a bug, he breaks free and throws Otto out the bank. Cops arrive, but Doc Ock takes a hostage, so he'll secure his getaway. It's Aunt May. Spidey comes up asking to hand her over, so he peacefully agrees. Oh no, wait, Butterfingers. Spidey webs her up enough for her to dangle over a statue, but Ock gets busy pummeling him. The two punch it out, with Spidey being flung to another building. Aunt May's losing her grip. That's when she realizes the ledge was just a few inches away.
Thank you.
Though the Doc gets her again, Spidey pulls back and flings himself towards Doc Ock. But he's got a spike at the ready. Aunt May sees this and bonks his face with an umbrella, making him miss his stabbing blow to Spider-Man. This makes Aunt May plummet to the street, but Spider-Man saves her just in time, while Doc Ock makes off with a few gold coin sacks. Spidey lets Aunt May down and he swings away. Evening arrives at the planetarium, where Peter's seen taking pictures and kinda having an awful day. Seems like he's not the only one, as Harry's trying to drown his problems in inebriation. Of course, this leads to Harry still being enraged that Peter's working for Spider-Man. Peter's saved by Jameson, who needs a photographer at that moment. Peter takes a couple of shots here and there with some very important people. Then the main event arrives. John Jameson, Jonah's son, is introduced and arriving at the party with MJ. Peter doesn't like this one bit, so eventually he comes to confront her. MJ isn't too thrilled to see him either, mainly because he brings out the "there's a disturbance" excuse. Peter tries to woo her with poetry, but that's a pass. A drink? That's a pass for her too. MJ complains that basically everyone in the entire world, even aliens, have seen her show. Everyone but her best friend Peter. She storms away in disappointment. Then another problem comes. Harry. He's again angry about Spider-Man, and even accuses Peter for stealing MJ from him and his father's love. It's gotta be the beer talking. Bro.
You stole my father's love.
MJ's right there with another dude. Just in time too, with John announcing his engagement with MJ. Peter's just being beaten stiff left and right, and Jameson screams at him to take the photo. Some more time passes. Peter's patrolling around until he runs dry of web again, so he takes a tumble. Peter can't understand what's going on, as he's also losing his climbing ability, not to mention he's being framed for robbing a bank with Doc Ock by the Daily Bugle. Peter Parker, the world's most stressed out man, in Doc Ock's makeshift lab. He finally gets some equipment and gets to work. Parker goes for a checkup, and the doctor says he's fine. He thinks it might be psychological though. Then Peter explains to the doctor some of his identity problems. The doctor thinks he has a choice. Later, he has a dream about Uncle Ben on how he finally wants to live his own life and finally give up the Spider-Man mantle.
I'm Spider-Man. No more.
This leads to the haunting scene of Peter finally dumping the suit in a garbage can. The next day arrives, and it seems Peter has a brighter outlook on life. He even brings back his glasses. He begins to do normal things, like crash bike wheels onto your neighbors, eat hot dogs while the cops do all the work. He finally picks up the books, and he's absolutely kicking it with his studies. Dr. Connors even pays him a compliment. Time passes, and he even gets to watch MJ's play. They have a meetup later, and even MJ notices this shiny new demeanor. Of course, he steps a bit too far and asks if they could get some food together, so MJ just gives him that reality check. She's getting married, bro. Ironically, they both confess to each other, but no one seems to notice because these two are both distracted from the upcoming marriage. Slowly headed for an argument, Peter's claiming he's changed, but MJ has to go.
You are different.
At the Daily Bugle, Jameson plans his cheapskate wedding, but he gets a very special visitor, the Garbage Man. Well, the real prize here is the Spidey suit the Garbage Man found. Jameson buys it for $100, and the story is printed. Meanwhile, Peter's enjoying his day, until he spots someone getting jumped in an alley. Sadly, he ignores it, because he's not Spider-Man anymore. Guilt, though, eats him away later, as he admits to Aunt May that it was his fault for Uncle Ben's undoing. Aunt May's totally disappointed by this, so she leaves Peter's sight. Back to Doc Ock. He's almost done with his reactor. He's just missing one more thing. That one thing might be here, with Harry. That's while he's obsessing over trying to find Spider-Man. Suddenly, Jurassic Park level of thumping can be heard from Harry's balcony. It's Doc Ock. He wants more tritium from Harry, but he calls him a hack. So he tries to hack Harry over to the ledge, but Harry gives in. He cuts him a deal, brings Spider-Man to him alive, and it's tritium Christmas for good old Doc Ock. Harry says to find Spidey, he's got to beat it out of Parker since he's the one that takes pictures of him. Of course, Harry forgot to tell him not to hurt Peter, but he does tell him. Ock just chooses to ignore this.
Don't hurt Peter!
Crime rate has skyrocketed, and a fire blows out near Pete. He hears that a kid is stuck on the second floor, so he runs to her rescue. Pete finds the kid, takes her, and actually takes her to safety. Too bad some poor soul on the fourth floor couldn't make it, and Peter's swallowed by this guilt again. He gets word that his aunt is moving, thanks to the mortgage. Despite Aunt May and Peter's last grim encounter, Aunt May wholeheartedly forgives him. Aunt May and the moving boy then ask where Spidey is, since they know he takes his photos. Peter replies with a nice, "I don't don't know. Aunt May suddenly gives a rousing speech about heroism, which prompts Peter to try and feel his powers back. So he does the logical thing and jumps off a building. Well, he's riddled with joy, followed by screaming, regret, and pain, and kicked off with back pain.
Oh, my back!
Somewhere else, Mary Jane prepares for her wedding, and she's positive she doesn't want to invite Peter. Ironically enough, MJ pulls John's head back and lip locks with him, probably checking if he's Spider-Man. Watch the first movie again. Too bad he's not Spidey. On another day, MJ invites Peter to a cafe. Then she suggests that she might reconsider his date offer. On the other end, Peter backpedals on her. MJ straight up just asks if Peter loves her or not, which he says no. MJ just sets out for a kiss from him, telling him that she needs to know something. And just as they were about to kiss, think fast, Nimrods. Well, Peter certainly did, because here comes the infamous Doc Ock. He takes big mechanical strides only for him to grab and choke Peter. I would say he said, "Harder, Daddy," but he just really questioned why he was here. Simple. It's to look for Spider-Man. And if Peter doesn't find him for Doc Ock, MJ will be peeled like a banana. Ock throws Peter away and gets away with MJ. Peter's enraged, and he begins to fully regain his powers. So he does the next logical thing and steals his suit back from Jameson. Triple J was regretful. Then he's enraged. Spidey's back, baby. He swings in the urban jungle to where Doc Ock is. He finds him, and they have a little dance on a clock tower. The two invertebrate namesakes tussle until they fall on top of a train. There, they do a lot of damage to each other until Doc Ock finally turns the dial up to make the train overspeed. No one can stop this train thanks to him, and they're running out of tracks. Spidey, unmasked, does the ultimate sacrifice and uses himself and some crafty web work to finally put a stop to that thing. He's totally tired out and faints. Good thing the citizens catch him and they totally won't snitch. They return his mask and the party's over because Ock is back. He wants the web head, but the citizens stand up for him. Too bad Ock knocks him out, and it's Christmas for both Harry and Otto. Otto gets his tritium and leaves, while Harry unmasks Spider-Man. Surprise! It's Pete, and Harry's in shock. Peter wants to know where MJ is from Harry, so he spills.
Harry, please, I've got to stop him.
Spidey sneaks into Ock's science project and he attempts to free MJ, but Ock knew he was there. It's time for the final round, and Spider-Man starts strong, but soon, Ock gains the upper hand. The Nova in Doc's reactor grows, and MJ's nearly sucked into it, so Spidey rescues her. This, however, gives Ock some wiggle room and has Spidey on the ropes and next to the point. But he webs the power cables instead. This sends Ock in another big shock. The Nova grows into a supernova and magnetizes everything. The shock snaps Otto back into his former self. Peter unmasks himself and needs help to destroy it, and he tries to talk some sense into this guy. Otto comes up with a plan to drown the supernova in order to stop it. This gives Peter some free time to save MJ.
Hi.
And Otto takes the reactor and himself down to the depths to stop this thing. Peter and MJ vamoose out of there, as Ock is last seen in the deep. Peter's resting MJ on some web, and MJ always did have a feeling. She knew. Peter tells her they can't be together because of the danger, so he sets her free.
I can't let you take that risk.
Meanwhile, Harry gets a schizo threat from an illusion of his own father. These delusions lead him to the Goblin Cave, where it has all of Norman's old toys. The day of the wedding is here, and MJ's looking unhappy. So she does the totally logical thing and leaves the groom for Peter in his dumpy apartment. Despite the odds, MJ and Peter risk it. There's the police sirens, so Spidey's off again to save the day. And that was it, guys, for Spider-Man 2. What did you guys think about this amazingly super movie? Let us know in the comments below with the hashtag Cinema Recap. This was Spider-Man 2 by Marvel Enterprises, starring Tobey Maguire, Alfred Molina, and James Franco. Until the next Sinister Six, see you later.